Dopamine detox doesn't mean becoming a monk. It truly means one thing, and that's to tolerate the boring stuff, do the boring stuff, and learn to enjoy the boring stuff again. I know, it's easier said than done. That's with anything, right? But what'll make this a little bit easier would be to find your why. Now, anyone that's been into self-help or has looked into self-help, self-improvement, whatever you want to call it, that's one of the main pillars, right? It's to find your why. Why do you feel the need to detox, Kat? Is it because you have a particular goal in mind? Or, is it because you find yourself not enjoying those things like you used to? In general, I don't think you need a reason. It's just a good thing to not be conditioned to need to be entertained all the time. It's okay to be bored for 15 seconds while you're waiting for the, crosswalk to tell you to go. It's okay to be in the shower with your thoughts alone. I still struggle. And I'm not making this video as a how to dopamine detox. No, I'm making this video as this is how I'm dealing with this bullshit. And maybe it'll help you, maybe it won't. So here's how I reverse engineered some of the habits that were kind of wrecking my dopamine receptors, right? Numero uno is I just needed to stop looking at my fucking phone. Damn, that's the biggest one. Silence your shit, delete your social media. At one point I was averaging 7 hours of screen time. Now I know that might be peanuts to some people, but to me that's way too much. As a father, as a husband, as a general member of society, it's a little too much to me. I was listening to my phone at work, listening to my phone in the shower, but a large part of my success in dealing with putting the phone down and not being on it as much as I used to was to delete social media. You gotta remember, and I'm sure you've heard this plenty of times, but a lot of these companies have put in millions of dollars of research to make these apps as addictive as possible. I was just tired of being one of those Pavlovian dogs where I hear a bing and I'm like, oh, or I see the phone screen light up and I'm immediately, I didn't like that feeling. And I'm sure you don't either. Now, numero dos is something that I needed to work on just overall, but it's a big thing when it comes to your dopamine receptors. And I'm sure you've all heard it, especially if you're a man. And that's to chill with the explicit viewing of things on a hub, if you know what I mean. I'm not going to say it because it might trigger some people, and I know it used to trigger me. Just the mentioning of that word would trigger me. I think that's one of the biggest things that you can do is to learn to recognize those triggers. For me, I've been struggling with that particular thing since I was like 12. Most men probably can relate. And I know my triggers are usually, it can be as simple as a very mild sex scene in a movie or a show. And I know this might seem a little extreme, but I try to watch shows that don't include that in them. For example, recently my wife wanted to watch a show called His and Hers with John Bernthal, one of the best actors out right now, by the way. One of my favorites. I mean, right in the first episode, there's at least 2 scenes in it. I just didn't want to watch it anymore because that's the main premise of the show. Were those 2, well, not those 2 scenes. There's one scene in particular. I don't want to spoil it for anyone in case you do want to watch that shit. But in the first episode, they show a scene that's kind of critical to the show. So I don't want to watch it because I know myself. I know it will trigger me. It takes time to know these things. You just have to try to be more self-aware of what does trigger you. You will stumble, you will fall, but if you can build that self-awareness slowly but surely, however way you can, I promise you it'll make this a lot easier. Now, numero tres might be the hardest. Probably not. The last one is probably the hardest, but depending on your substance of choice is to stop consuming drugs. Caffeine is a drug. Yes, caffeine is a drug, guys. My choice was caffeine and, a little cafecito and some little Mary Jane. It's going to be hard to do at first because it's like junk food, man. It really is. It just kind of, the attention is just like, hey, come consume me, You're bored? Come on. Come in for a swim. The water's fine, I truly believe, and this is going to sound cliche and all the, but you need a support system. You need someone you can trust that you can call, be like, hey man, I'm feeling weak. I'm feeling weak. Someone that you can trust, someone that will support you, someone that won't egg you on. I recommend an audiobook called The Easy Peasy Way to Quit Pornography. Now, that also ties into numero dos. A lot of the things that the book shows you can be applied to basically anything you're trying to do with this dopamine detox. It's actually a really good book because your boredom is like it's like a pang. It's like a phone call. It's like a spam phone call. You know, that's one of my favorite ways to ignore a pang. That's what they call it in the book. A pang is, you know, that urge. One of my favorite ways to avoid it is to think of it as a spam phone call and kind of like, and then just ignore it. Silence it. You know, with this whole thing, give yourself some grace. Love yourself a lot. I know it's real easy to fall down that rabbit hole of self-pity and self-hate and all this stuff, but forgive yourself, man. I always think of the song Count Me Out by Kendrick Lamar. You gotta learn to love yourself and forgive yourself 100 times if you have to. That's the key, man. Show yourself some grace. You gotta remember, society kind of conditioned us this way, but you're stronger than those things that have conditioned you this way. It won't happen overnight. This will need work. It won't happen overnight, but you will prevail. I promise. Just be relentless with it.